The more I look at Auburn's matchup against Vanderbilt, I just don't see how Vandy's going to score.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Auburn. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. I'm Zac Blackerby, and happy Crain Kick Thursday to everyone who celebrates. Jake Crain of Crain and Company and the Daily Wire hanging out with us. Jake, you're up in Nashville. You're feeling the lack of energy around the Vanderbilt football program. And the more I look at this team, with them probably starting not their starting quarterback on Saturday, I have a hard time seeing how Vandy's going to be able to consistently put up points against Auburn on Saturday. Am I off on this? Am I being too critical of the Commodores?
No, I just hope you're right.
Yeah.
And look, the game of football, it's crazy. But I mean, logically, you look at this game, it's one of the few outside of, the group of 5 games that Auburn's going to play that Auburn's going to have a better roster than what they're going up against. And with the changes, and obviously it's been a letdown year for Vanderbilt. That does exist. I've come to learn that Vanderbilt does have expectations. I mean, obviously Clark Lee, who I'm convinced is Professor X. I've never seen him and Professor X in the same room together.
Sure.
But maybe after this year, I have to rethink that. There was a lot of hope coming in this year with what they had returning, what they accomplished last year. But it's all fallen apart. They've kind of gone back to regular Vanderbilt. And it started with Hawaii early in the year. They couldn't run the ball against Hawaii, who isn't exactly the steel curtain on defense. I mean, Timmy Chang's trying to rebuild that program out there. But it's just been a consistent problem up front. And now that backup quarterback starting, outside of Will Shepherd, I don't look at anybody on that team and I'm like, oh no, especially with the way Auburn's defense has been playing, and they'll have a talent advantage in this game. And I tell you what, Zach, one thing too, I don't think Auburn's going to overlook Vanderbilt. They're not in a spot to be able to overlook anybody because, they're trying to get to the bowl win mark. They know how important that is. And they know what a loss to Vandy, let's be honest, if we're going to tell the truth, is awful for PR. It's an awful optic situation. If you want to ask anybody, just ask Billy Napier.
No question about it. I think Hugh Freeze's messaging, I mean, he's got Auburn folks really believing his words, and he's probably being genuine, right? How it's a scary place to play was the word that he used. And I've talked to a few players this week, and they seem just as focused on this game as they did, against Georgia a few weeks ago. And so I think his messaging and his tactic, whether it's legit or not, it doesn't matter. It's getting the job done. They aren't going to overlook Vandy. I'm 100% with you. I think this is a team that believes that the toughest part of their schedule is over, and they should win out until the Iron Bowl. And you've kind of been saying that, hey, Auburn certainly got a chance in the Iron Bowl. We'll talk about that in a few weeks, but I'm with you. I think the way Hugh Freeze has handled the emotions in this locker room have been pretty solid despite losing 4 games in a row. And now all of a sudden they're like, okay, everything is still in front of us in regards to being able to do more than what a lot of people expected us to.
Well, look, the Auburn head coach version of Hugh Freeze, I guess you can call him a lot of things, but not transparent isn't one of them, especially with the media. I think he's telling you how he really feels, and he's right because of a couple reasons. I mean, you saw the answer he gave the other day when somebody decided to go on a fishing expedition and try and create something out of nothing. But the reason it's scary is because you think about Vanderbilt, Zach. Anybody listening out there, I say the word Vanderbilt football. Do you really just quake in your boots? Do you get really super nervous? No, you don't. They are known as the doormat of SEC football. They are known as the reason they are hanging around is because everybody can point to them and say, look, we do care about academics, even though we know the slogan is it just means more in the SEC. That's who Vanderbilt's been, good, bad, or indifferent. So if we think that, the players are going to think that. They know it's Vanderbilt, right? So you get worried they may get lulled to sleep. Oh, we should just roll our helmet out and beat this team. And then going there to play, you've gone to play at LSU. Right? You've gone to play in these environments, Texas A&M, where it's crazy, it's ruckus. That gets you going. Some guys like playing on the road more than at home. You go to Vanderbilt, and it's like a picnic in front of the Louvre. Like it's quiet. You can hear the birds. If anybody's getting pulled over, you're going to hear the siren. and they don't start packing that thing until they realize they're still in the game. So I think Hugh Freeze is being 100% transparent, and it's not just him. You would almost, as crazy as it sounds, rather go play a team that you turn on the film and they play in an environment and you go, hey, guys, we don't play well, we're going to lose, as opposed to being like, all right, guy, I'd much rather have to say whoa than go. And that's just the nature of the beast for Vanderbilt football right now when you're playing them on the road.
Yeah, I think a lot of these players, though, the way they talk about some of the Vanderbilt athletes, I think they respect them. I think they respect what they're doing. It just hasn't all come together when I talk to some of these kids. It's the right mindset to have.
They respect them. A lot of these guys know each other, right? Like some of them know each other. But having said that, there's a reason that one of them went to Auburn and one of them went to Vanderbilt. That isn't to say that Vanderbilt doesn't have any good players. Hell, just look at Kentucky's run game. Ray Davis, pretty good. Will Shepherd, NFL player. That's their cat on offense. But they don't have enough of them. So, look, I think Auburn's players have been great with the media. You haven't heard any controversy calls by any player in the media, any coach in the media, really. So I think Auburn's got a good culture when it comes to that. I think it's a little bit of that. But, look, at the end of the day, Auburn can't overlook anybody.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Vanderbilt attacking Auburn's defense, whether it's on the ground or in the air, you got to think Walter Taylor is going to be a big part of it. He's the guy that they're assuming starts, got his first touchdown of his career last week against Ole Miss. That's the only time they scored against Ole Miss. And Jake, they may do different things to make it look different, but I think they're going to try to achieve the same thing they did against Mississippi State. Say, hey, beat us with your arm, or this isn't going to happen for you. I think it's going to be the same approach.
Yeah, you got to prove it to me again. Like, all right, you showed me last week against Mississippi State. Can you prove it again? Not only that, can you do it on the road? Because, I mean, they went out to play at Cal, and Cal's not exactly, the 7 rings of hell for opposing teams. And right. Auburn didn't really play well. But that's a West Coast trip. It's early in the year. It's late at night. Whatever. But when I look at how Vanderbilt can attack Auburn, the thing that scares you if you're Auburn is they got nothing to lose. They could run 6 reverses. They could run throwback passes. But the question becomes, with your new quarterback, how much are you going to put on his plate? Because I think we overlook ball handling sometimes. We overlook the things that quarterbacks have to do, the footwork, going through with the fakes, being on the right spot, having that chemistry built with a quarterback you're just throwing in there with receivers that have been out there catching passes from another guy, not only during the game, but at practice for more times than they have with this guy. So I think you may see Vanderbilt give a lot of eye candy. You may see some crazy formations. You may see a couple trick plays. But at the end of the day, there's only so much you can put on a new guy's plate, especially against a defense that's capable and can get you behind the chains very quickly, which obviously limits the playbook.
Is there any weight in your mind? This is the last home game for Vanderbilt this year. So I assume that's senior day. They go to South Carolina next week, and then they go to Tennessee on the 25th. So I guess they have an off week between those games. But does this mean anything extra because of that? And I mean, it seems like if you're going to line up all 3 of those games, Vandy probably thinks this is the most winnable of those 3 games, just the fact that it's at home.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's always a little extra emotional, right, on senior day. I mean, you get guys that kind of punch above their weight. But look, gravity's gravity. Over 4 quarters, that stuff, tends to work itself out. Honestly, what I think, Zach, I think Vanderbilt's at the point of the year where, and I hate to say this, that you're punching the clock. You're punching the clock. You're doing what you have to do. You're not, I mean, sure. I'm guessing the enthusiasm probably isn't at an all-time high right now. So I just don't think that the senior day emotions or that, one last hurrah, let's circle the wagons for Vandy. I don't see it.
Yeah. All right, Jake, I want to get your thoughts on the final score prediction. And then also there's a narrative that's popped up on Auburn's corner of the social media world. And we'll also hear from Auburn head coach Bruce Pearl in just a moment, right here on Locked on Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to play daily fantasy sports, whether it's football with the NFL or college football, whether it's the NBA or college basketball starting right around the corner. And, of course, the World Series as it begins to wrap up. They've got everything on Prize Picks, and all you have to do is you pick a player, and they're going to have a projected stat, and you just pick if you think it's going to be more or less You pick 2 to 6 players. Obviously, the more players you pick, you can win up to 25 times your money. It's very, very fun. And it's just you playing against the numbers. You're not playing against, these sharks and pros and all of that. So it's very, very fun. I encourage you to check it out. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for our first deposit match up to $100. Once again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for our first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Frisky Whiskey. Frisky Whiskey is the best place to buy all of your alcohol, whether it's wine, beer, bourbon, tequila, vodka. Doesn't matter what it is. Frisky Whiskey has you covered. It's about 20 minutes outside of the Auburn, Opelika, Lee County area. You hop on I-85. You go into the state of Georgia. You'll see a bunch of signs pointing you to the direction of Frisky Whiskey, or you can just type it in your phone's GPS. They got 10,000 square feet of selection. Based on where it's located, the prices are going to be way lower than anywhere in the state of Alabama. So be sure to check that out. That is Frisky Whiskey. That's where I hope you buy all of your alcohol as well. Frisky Whiskey, thank you so much for partnering with Locked on Auburn. Jake Crain, our guest every single Thursday here on Locked on Auburn. So Cadillac Williams put out an incredible pregame speech that has been put on social media now as Auburn beat Mississippi State. And I watch it. I assume you watch it and say, dang, Caddy's a great leader. So glad. True Auburn man. Glad he's a part of this program. But there's a big chunk of Auburn people still, Jake, that say Caddy should have been our head coach. Caddy should have been our head coach instead of Hugh Freeze. And I don't really know what to say to those people.
Yeah, first off, all respect to Carnell Williams. I think eventually he's going to be a head coach one day. And
100%.
I'm rooting for him. I think he's going to do a great job.
100%.
What he's done for Auburn on the field and off the field, it's invaluable. Yep. But I think that this is the same swath of people that probably want Hugh Freeze to fail. I would think that that's the only logical reason I could think to say that. Look, this being a head coach and look, Cadillac, I'm sure will tell you this. It's way more than just speeches. Like obviously motivation is a huge part of leadership, right? And that's something that comes along with it, especially when you get so few opportunities and you put in so much time. But I would have to assume that those are the same people that were upset when Auburn hired Hugh Freeze, probably the same people that were upset when Brian Harsin, that situation went down. And I think you're always going to have that segment, whether that be for personal reasons, whether that be for, belief systems. I don't know. I just want Auburn to win. I don't think that'll change. Probably even when he starts having a lot of success, they'll be waiting on his downfall. So that's the only logical explanation I could get from that. But like I said, I think this coaching staff is unbelievably together. I think they all know their strengths. They all know their, quote unquote weaknesses. And I think, they've done a really good job of keeping the locker room together. It's hard when it's choppy, right? And you're having to go through, the stuff that these guys go through to get ready to play. But it takes a strong leadership group. It takes a strong core of men. And I think that's what Auburn has. But look, there's going to be some people that hate Hugh Freeze regardless. It's sad in my opinion, but it is what it is. And that's just, part of it.
Yeah. Brian Harsin was fired a year ago this week. The best thing that happened since Brian Harsin that has been fired was Hugh Freeze was hired to be head coach. The second best thing, in my opinion, is that they retained Cadillac Williams. So this is no disrespect to Cadillac Williams. I just think it's an interesting conversation.
No. I know. I just wanted to make sure that, again, this isn't saying that Cadillac can't be a head coach or shouldn't be a head coach, but and Etheridge too, and Trevon Reed. Look, one of the smartest things that Hugh Freeze did, I don't think he gets enough credit for, is that he brought people in that he knows Auburn better than him, because he didn't know Auburn as well as these guys did, and they need to be able to say, Coach, this is a great idea. This is something that can work here. It can be embraced here. Or, Coach, I don't think this is the best way to go about this, and here's why at Auburn. That goes a long way. Sure. Like it's like in anything. If you just have a bunch of yes men that are just scared to death, and it doesn't mean you go in there and say no every time because you wield it like, a flaming sword. like you're a transformer. But no, it helps out everybody, and it's the way it should be. So I think that's one of the smartest decisions he made. And look, they're damn good coaches,
Totally.
and really good recruiters. So it's a win-win. So I think it's very smart, and I'm excited to watch Caddy and these other guys get their opportunities. But Auburn got the right guy for right now, and that's Hugh Freeze.
I think so too. All right, Jake, give me a final score prediction for Auburn Vandy on Saturday.
Yeah, man, I like Auburn somewhere around the 27-30 number.
Okay.
And look, if Vandy comes out and hits a play early on a reverse pass, nobody panic, nobody freak out.
Mm-hmm.
I would say give me 27. Say they hit 27 again. Give me 27-17. 27-17.
So not covering.
I think it's 27-10 late. Vandy scores a garbage time touchdown. Give me 27-17.
Yeah, little backdoor cover action.
Yeah, God, wouldn't be the first time.
Nope, that's right. Jake, thank you for your time. We're going to jump into a conversation with Bruce Pearl, Auburn head basketball coach. But first, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Definitely. First off, super excited for basketball season. Heard we got some shooters.
Let's go.
Woo! Finally, please. Love Bruce Pearl. He's the man. Yeah, if you want to find us, YouTube, it's Crain & Company, Crainn Company, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. And for all the people that hate me because of the Charlie 5 thing, I still love you guys. So appreciate it, Zach.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is the best place to wager on all of your sports action. We talked about it just a second ago, but Auburn is a 12.5-point favorite against the Vanderbilt Commodores. Jake saying backdoor cover right now as I record this on Wednesday. I like Auburn to cover, but anyway, I'm going to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now, as you should. And right now, new customers on FanDuel, you bet $5. You have a winning money line bet. It's $5. You win $150 in bonus bets. You kidding me? Any money line bet and you win. That's ridiculous. So $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. They've got spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. That is at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off your sports winning. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. Basketball season's here. If your basketball stuff's outdated or you need a new jersey or, something to wear to Neville Arena this year or watch parties, whatever it may be, head over to Alumni Hall. They've got 3 great physical locations in Opelika, in Auburn, and in Huntsville. Also, if you're like, man, I don't live anywhere near those places, just go to alumnihall.com. All their stuff is officially licensed. Really solid brands, high quality. You won't regret checking out Alumni Hall. If you're an Auburn fan, which I assume you are if you're watching the show, you will absolutely love it. And then, of course, veterans and college kids, just show your ID and you'll get a percent off of your order. AlumniHall.com or their 3 great physical locations at Auburn, Opelika, and Huntsville. And joining us now, Auburn head basketball coach Bruce Pearl. Coach, I imagine this is a crazy time of the year for obvious reasons with the start of the season, but now with this new era of college athletics, I mean, so many new faces on this roster. I'm sure there's a million different things that you're feeling, and also a million things that you're looking forward to learning about this team.
Well, Zach, great to be with you. I'm excited about the team. I'm cautiously optimistic. How's that?
Sure.
Which is hard for me, but I like my team. They've worked really, really hard. We've got really good depth. And you're right. We have a lot of new faces and some new pieces. And that's always, it is fun to see, what it is that they can and what it is that they can't do and how they blend into what we're doing. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a lot of these new faces at their previous stops were very good at shooting beyond the perimeter. It seems like that was an emphasis for you guys.
Yeah, I do. I think that the guys that we brought in, new Aiden Holloway and Denver Jones, Chaney Johnson, and Chad Baker, those 4 guys can all shoot the ball from the perimeter, which makes whatever offense you're running better because it opens up the floor. We didn't shoot it great last year by percentage, and we've always been a team that's been better from 3 than 2 in some ways. So hopefully that'll increase some of our scoring. Zach, there's been some rule changes this year. One of the biggest one is the secondary defender coming over to rotate over to take charges. If it's close, bang, bang, it's going to be a block by virtue of just the details of the rules. Mm-hmm. And so therefore getting to the rim is getting harder to guard and getting more important to do offensively. That's going to be one of the things that we're going to have to work on is keeping people out of our yard.
Coach, as these rules change regarding the transfer portal, does it change how you coach or how you have to prepare your team going into the season with so many new guys that weren't here a year before?
Zach, it's not about the new guys. I first of all, I don't mind the transfer portal. Transfer is not a bad word.
Sure.
I love bringing transfers in. I hate losing transfers. I don't like losing them. It's like family, and and so I don't want to teach the kids to flee. I want to teach them to fight. But that said, I've always enjoyed bringing guys in, and even back in the day when we sat them out. And so what's changed in recruiting, though, is the number of high school players that you can take, because the expectations for high school players has got to be different than it was, let's say, 5 to 10 years ago, in the sense that unless you're a top 25 high school player, your first year is not going to be, because of the COVID and because of the fifth year and the transfers and guys being older players are just better. There's a big difference between an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old. And so therefore getting old and staying old is important.
Sure. We had Denver Jones on the show last week, Coach, and he talked very highly of Aiden. He thinks that he's way beyond his years, not playing like a freshman. Are you seeing similar things?
Yeah, I mean, Aiden he's got a real ability. He's got a real feel. He's got great range. He's a hard worker, and so therefore Aiden's really prepared for these moments right now. And Denver's been around, long enough to be able to, he's seen 3 sets of freshmen. He was one himself, and this is his 4th year in college. And so he knows there's a difference when he sees it.
Yeah, sure. What an offseason for Janai Broome. It kind of seemed like he was picking up a lot of steam around the NBA draft, and fortunately he chose to come back to Auburn. And he's getting selected for a lot of preseason lists and awards. Coach, what are you expecting out of Janai Broome this season?
Well, I tell you what, if he can make as much progress this year as he did last year, that'll be great for him and great for Auburn. Coming in from mid-major, he had a lot to prove, and he proved that he could score and block shots and play at this level every night. And now what I'd like more from him is just to impact the game more defensively. He's expanded his range. He's a good 3-point shooter, and he's an outstanding passer, particularly off the perimeter. So, and a little bit of ball handling. So he's got some tools in the toolbox that we're going to try to take a little bit more of advantage of. But I always want more from him on the defensive end and on the backboards.
Sure. Obviously, he and Jalen accompanied you to SEC Media Days a few weeks ago. Are those the 2 leaders in this locker room, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, those guys are 2 of the older guys, and certainly they lead by example. KD Johnson is always going to lead both by example and with his voice. It's loud. I think Chad Baker's got some leadership ability. Chris Moore is probably a guy that's been in the locker room as long as anybody, and guys respect. Trey Donaldson is another guy that definitely can lead a team and be a leader in the locker room. So I do think we have several guys that can lead. And I think the thing, Zach, for us is really the depth. When you talk about Janai Broome, it's hard not to talk about Dylan Cardwell. Sure. And recognize how good Dylan is defensively and in the air, and how much better he makes the other 4 guys when he's out there. It's hard to talk about Jalen Williams and his versatility as an athlete and an inside-out player. And, when Jalen Williams, when we win our first game, and hopefully it'll be Baylor, but when we win our first game, Jalen Williams will become the all-time winningest player in the history of Auburn basketball. Wow. That's history. That's legacy. And he's done so coming off the bench. He's done so as a starter in a day and age where guys don't stay 4 years. He stayed 5. And so I hope the Auburn family will always really appreciate, Jalen Williams, for that. And so, yeah, our biggest thing is just our depth. I got 2 at every position. I kind of feel like Noah.
Yeah, right. Coach, I mean, you mentioned Baylor in the season opener. I mean, this non-conference schedule, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this team. What was the thought? What was the mindset when you were putting together this schedule? Because I mean, it looks pretty different than a year ago's.
Well, it's probably the most challenging schedule that we've played, and I think it's all about relevance. We have been a top 10 program 5 out of the last 6 years. At least at some point, we got ranked in the top 10.
Sure,
and I'm very proud of that consistency. But to do that, you've got to be good, and you got to play against really good people. We may have overdone it a little bit to have Baylor and Notre Dame in New York. And Notre Dame is different in New York. I mean, if I was playing Notre Dame in South Dakota, it'd be no big deal. I got to play them in Brooklyn where they've got, thousands and thousands of alums.
Right.
That's 2 really tough opponents right out of the gate, especially with so many new players. But I think what it does is it gets your guys ready earlier. Our guys have been excited all fall, and we're anxious to play this kind of schedule.
Yeah. Coach, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck this season.
Okay, Zach. Thanks to be with you. War Eagle.
You can read all of my written work at auburndaily.com, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.